there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today, we start Book 8, which deals, and 8 and 9 together, deals with the discussion of friendship, which is, some people argue it's kind of a digression. It is a digression, but it's not, in a sense, because what is it? First of all, is it a digression or not? This is a big question. It seems to be in this turn of this, the question of virtue, right? The discussion of happiness. But given that the frame of what the title of the thesis of the concern of introduction of book 1 was the question of what is the best way of life, and that led us to the question of the best way of life is what is the good, but what is the good? It's understood in terms of eudaimonia, which is happiness, translated normally, or we say fulfillment, and so some translators eudaimonia means to be fulfilled, but happy is this condition of meeting your nature and meeting your capacity, right? But friendship seems to be a condition of happy. Something about this, and also the discussion of friendship will be very important to frame and understand why the discussion in chapter 2 of book 1 of the Politics is somewhat not complete about man's political nature, the social or political nature of man in that sense. So this is the problem of the word social. Of course, I understand that, but the societal, we can't say societal in that sense. This idea that man is a political animal, right? This is how we understand this, and how is this to be understood? So let's turn to chapter 1. Okay, we're going to go to chapter 1 of this discussion of friendship. It would follow after these matters. Okay, the matters that we did, the question of virtues, right, and the question of capacities, and then the question of, in light of the capacities and virtue, leads us to the question of being, those people who are, restrained, self-restrained versus lacking self-restraint, or that whole discussion of book 7, right? Now we're turning to the question of incense. Now, to go through what concerns friendship. For friendship is a certain virtue, or for friendship is a certain virtue, or is accompanied by virtue, semicolon. And further, it is most necessary with a view to life, colon. Without friends, no one would choose to live, even if he possessed all other goods, semicolon. And indeed, those who are wealthy or have acquired political office and power, here power dynamic, dunaseri, the term power is not, this is dynasties, dynasties, and sometimes it's omitted in this. A dynasty, political office, or dynasties, right? This is interesting. Power, dynasty, dynastic, rule in that sense. Political offices and that seem to be in need of friends most of all. So this idea, the friend is something that the best life, that the good way of life, and that would require friends. That friendship, friends are necessary. In other words, even if one possessed all the other goods, include those who are wealthy and higher, it still life would not be as good without friends in that sense, right? What benefit would there be in such prosperity if one were deprived of the opportunity to perform a good deed, which arises and is most praiseworthy in relation to friendship especially? So therefore, this is imagine having beneficence, wealth, and all this stuff, but having no one to do good deeds to, or to spend the money on, in that sense, right? And this is the point he says here. Or how could one's prosperity be guarded and preserved without friends? In other words, even if your prosperity be guarded or preserved without friends. For the more prosperity one has, the more precarious it is. That's very interesting. That he makes a very interesting argument that the more prosperity one has, the more the greater your prosperity. That prosperity means here is the wealth of goods, external goods, in that sense. Maybe not external goods, the goods of all good type of goods. The more you have, the greater you have, the more precarious it is, right? And in poverty as well as in other misfortunes, people suppose that friends are their only refuge. So they're not only necessary in the time of achieving the high points, like having great prosperity and wealth and things like this, but also necessary when the bad times happen. Things were low and things are, the refuge of misfortunes, right? And friendship is the help to the young in saving them from error, as it is also to the old, with a view to the care they require and the diminished capacity for action stemming from their weakness. So that's another thing, is that friendship is not only good for the young, but it's also good. So it's not only for the rich and the poor, it's also for the old and the young, right? The young and the old, in that sense, stemming from weakness of the action. It says that it is a help also to those in their prime in performing noble actions. For two going together, this is that line from the Iliad, right? Iliad 10, are better able to both to think and to act. And here is nosenai, to apprehend. This is that word here. Here's the think. He translated it as think. It is to perceive by. It's the word is nosei, noesai, which is again to perceive by the mind or to apprehend. So it's not only it's the using of the mind. It's better able to not only act in the mind, perceive by the mind, but also to act, to act, to think, or to apprehend, to perceive by the mind, or to act. This is that. So that of those who are in their perfect prime. So it's not only good for people who are in excess, in other words, that wealthy and that old and young, but those in their prime, those who are in their best the condition of age, that they're suited to do and able to be to do it to do, and therefore this makes them better able to act the two together, right? By nature, friendship seems to be inherent in a parent. And by nature, friendship seems to be inherent in a parent for offspring and in offspring for a parent. The first phrase in parent for the offspring is omitted in some manuscripts. And the second offspring is omitted in others. So therefore, this is different manuscripts omitted. So therefore, that the inherent of a parent, the offspring is inherent for a parent, right? Not only in human beings, but also in birds and most animals. It is inherent too in those that are alike in kind to one another, and especially human beings, which is why we praise people who are lovers of humankind. Philanthropoi. This is the word philanthropoi. This is where are philanthropoi. This is for philanthropic lovers of mankind. One might see in one's travels too that every human being is kindred to every other human being and a friend or dear, philos. Or the adjective philos can be translated either as the adjective loved or beloved, dear, or noun by friend. So okay, so is to every other human being and a friend, or something dear to him, or what is it, loved by them, beloved, or dear to them, right? That's in the adjectival, right? So therefore, in other words, human something but the human makes it that even something and even the other in that sense is something human. That, in other words, something that the akin. Some, in other words, our sameness, something that we share. Our nature is something we share, and that friendship is points to that, and that what is common, what is together, right? And that therefore, one might see in one's travel too that every human being is kindred to every other human being and is a friend or dear to him, right? So therefore, there's something this is the cosmopolitan or friendship points to a cosmopolitanism, right? Or a shared humanity in that sense, right? That's something that we share as fellow humans, and therefore it seems too that friendship holds cities together, and that lawgivers are more serious about it than about justice. This is a very important line. That in many sense, lawgivers, friendship, friendship holds cities together. It's the thing. It's the bond that holds cities together, and that lawgivers, the people who create cities, are more serious about it sometimes than justice. That's interesting in that. For like-mindedness, now this is homonia, oneness of mind, homonoia, 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 which is likeness of mind, like mind, open oneness of mind. For homonoia seems to resemble friendship. So this lightness, oneness of mind, the homonoia. The homonoia is that which holds the community together, that the people act as one mind, act as one in that sense, right? They have a one likeness of mind. That this homonoia seems to resemble friendship, and lawgivers aim at this especially and drive out discord because it's especially produces hatred. So therefore, homonoia and discord. Homonoia brings togetherness, and discord brings hatred and separateness, right? When people are friends, they have no need of justice. But when they are just, they do need friendship in addition. And in the realm of the just things, the most just seem to be what involves friendship. So, what is interesting, that friends have no need of justice, but the just need friends. And why? Because he says the most just seem to be what involves friendship. Yet friendship is not only necessary, but also beautiful, noble. In other words, not only it's both necessary and but also kalos, noble, beautiful, fine, right? For we praise those who love their friends. 8. Philo, philoi, those who love their, sometimes philoi, right? In other words, this is interesting. We praise those who love, we praise the philoi, okay? Philoi, those who love their friends. This is that line, those who love their philoi. And an abundance of friends is held to be a noble or beautiful thing. Noble thing, abundance of friend is a noble, fine, beautiful thing. Kalos, ta kalos. Further, people suppose good men and their friends to be one and the same. So it's people suppose what good men and their friends to be one and the same. That's very interesting. That the good men and their friends are. This is the supposition of people. People suppose this, that they are one and the same. But not a few, not an accent paragraph, not a few things about friendship are in dispute. So not a few things are in dispute. So is there many things that are in dispute? But not a few things about this are in dispute. For some set it down as a certain likeness, and friends are those who are alike, which is why they assert that like is to like, jackdaw to jackdaw, and such things. Now, 9 is this phrase has the same meaning in our proverb of birds of a feather flock together. And the phrase like to like is seed lysis, right? Like to like. Right? So, okay, but this is similar that birds of a feather flock together, jackdaw to jackdaw, and other things. In other words, that there's this belief that there's sameness, right? Others, on the contrary, assert that all such persons are parters to one another. Now, 10. That is, each vie with each. In other words, that is, each vies with each, just as parters does with parters. Here, Aristotle alludes to Hesiod's works and days, lines 26 and 25, the classic 26 and 25. Um, I'll read it for you guys. 20, is it? No, I'm trying to get that right. 25 and 26. The potter is rival to potter, and craftsman to craftsman, and the beggar is jealous of beggar, and poets of poets. And he goes, what? Why? What is that is like to? This is, he goes about strife, right? He says that if starts with the examination at 11 of strife. There is not, it turns out, not one kind of strife, but two that over the earth. There are two. The first is one who praise when we knew her. The second worth blame. Their natures are different completely. The one fosters war, that evil, and quarrels and contests. The other one, the hard-hearted one. So that's one, right? Her no man would be close to. It is necessary, though by design of the gods, men honor that this strife. In other words, is by necessity. Though the designs of the god, men honors this strife, this burden. But the other, the firstborn, the child of dark night, Zeus, son of Kronos, high throned, who dwells in his height, set in in the roots of the earth. For men, for men she is better. It is she who stirs the unhandy man, even him to start working. For one watches another and feels a longing for work. When she looks at a rich man who hastens to plow and sows and sets his household in order, so neighbor envies his neighbor, and so he hastens towards wealth. For this strife is a good one for mortals, and parter is rival to parter. So therefore, this reference here is not a rival. This reference here is a very specific one. Um, this strife, according to Hesiod, is a good for mortals. And the line is quoted in Hesiod, Plato's Lysias, right, as well. But the context in that case, the question is whether the goods are whether the goods are most hostile to the good, right? That's the good are most, whether the good is are most hostile to the good from Plato. Here, it's not so certain. I think Hesiod, it's that there's two strifes. War is one, and the other one is, and it's kind of an envy. It's the seeing the other person wishing, but it's not just wanting. It's wanting what he has, right? That's Potter against Potter, and that's why this line here is, on the contrary, assert that all such persons are potters or to parters, right? This is Hesiod. And concerning these very points, people seek out something higher and pertaining more to nature. So therefore, there's two views that men are like to like. That's, some people argue this way. Some people argue that men are that they're contrary, and contrary to these very points, people seek up something higher and even pertaining more to nature. Euripides claiming that the parched earth loves the rain, and the august heaven, when full of rain, loves to fall to earth. Um, these verses of Euripides come from the play no longer existent, fragments of which are preserved by Anthemius. The verb to love in this passage is not philin, the root of friendship, but eron, which is significant passion, erotic love. This is the love here is not friendship. The line from this, it's that the other words, it's not friendship, it's eros, right? The argument here. That's something higher, that points to something higher. Euripides claims that the parched earth desires the rain. Eros loves and desires the rain, and the rain up there desires the earth. Heraclitus, that opposition is advantageous, or perhaps what is opposition, in other words, what is in opposition holds together, right? That's another way it can be understood. Opposition is advantageous, but what holds together? According to Grant, this saying reflects the oracle style of the famous Heraclitus of Ephesus. Only the last fragment is preserved by another source or origin apart from Aristotle. So therefore, this is only the last fragment is preserved by some other source of this line. This idea that these opposites, the opposites. So therefore, there's one that these two desire each other. Euripides argues that the land, the scorched earth wants the rain, and the heaven thing wants the land. Right? There's desire in that sense. Here is that the oppositions. I mean, about the two things that, in other words, he says what is an opposition holds together, right? Or opposition is advantage. That the noblest harmony, the most beautiful harmony, comes from the things that differ. So therefore, this is, in other words, it's difference in that sense. The things that differ produces the most harmony in that sense. Produces the most beautiful harmony. Comes from and that all things come into being in accord with strife. Now, remember, there's two strifes. There's war, and then there's the strife of the two things competing with each other, right? We have to remember the two strifes here. And Heraclitus, I think, means this, and that we have to understand. Maybe, well, Heraclitus may argue strife, that through strife, this is that weird notion we get this the whole conflict, war makes everything great. No, remember that as Hesiod teaches us that strife is twofold. There's one that is conflict and destructive and war, and then there's this one that is motivates men, that drives men to want to do better, right? To compete with each other. So competition is good, but the competition can be bad too. That's the double-sidedness of it, right? But the beautiful harmony comes from the difference, and all things come into being in accord with strife. Contrary to these, there are still others, including Empedocles, who claimed that like aims at like, right? Aims at like. Epicurus Argentum attempts to reconcile the eclectics and the Heraclean thought, according to Diogenes Lasiternus. The sophist Gorgias was a student of Empedocles. This saying is preserved by Athenius and Stobaeus, both of these things, like for like and like. Okay, what aims at, other words, who claims that like aims at like, right? Now let us leave aside those perplexing questions bound up. Now let us leave aside those perplexing questions bound up with matters of nature. Okay, this question of nature, these questions that are bound with matters of nature. In other words, the question of are things. In other words, let's not address the metaphysical question. He's saying here. In other words, the things bound up with nature. This question of that all the world is chaos, or is like everything sameness, these ontological questions. Let's kind of put these aside, for they're not proper to the present examination. And let us examine instead what instead those that are bound up with what is distinctively human, and that involve character and passions. So I'm going to stop. There's a full colon here, so we'll stop it for a second. In other words, we're going to leave the ontological, the metaphysical questions aside because they're not proper here. Our discussion, because we're engaged in political analysis, a discussion of understanding virtue and nature of man for the legislator in that sense, right? So that they're not proper to the present discussion. And let us examine rather the distinctively human. And what are the human in terms of this question? This question here that involves characters and passions. For example, whether a friendship arises in all people. So what is this? What is the question? Does friendship arise in all peoples, or whether it is impossible for the wicked to be friends? So the first kind of question is it possible for all people, or whether it is or is it impossible for the wicked to be friends? And whether there is one form of friendship or more. That's the second, right? So first thing is that all or only the good. In other words, the wicked can't be friends. And then there's one form of friendship or more. Those who suppose that there is only one form because it admits degree. Those who suppose that there is only one form because it admits of degree, and the more and the less have trusted an insufficient indication. For things different in form also admit of more and less. So therefore, it's not just more. In other words, here he's saying that it's the question of more and less. Not that the idea because that friendship can be strong, than more or less strands, right? This implies it must be on a degree. Friendship must be a question of degree. His arguing no, there's different types of friendship, because there can be, in other words, different things, different in form, also admit questions of more or less. So what pertains to them was spoken of before. So 14. There is no direct or obvious discussion of this in the Ethics. Burnet refers to what Aristotle's on sense of perception and the perceptible things in chapter 6, on sense perception and perceptible thing. In other words, his essay on sense perception, right? And this perceptible things in chapter 6 of this. So, okay, there's no obvious discussion of this issue here. Maybe another work about what pertains here to this question of this discussion here of what is those who suppose that there is only one form because of this question of things that because of difference of degree, and that in fact things are different in form, can also have a difference in terms of more or less as well. That may have been that Burnet argues that's addressed there. So let's stop here. Let's just stop here, and if you have any questions or comments, please put them below, and if I see them, I will respond to them.